Our next session is all about implementing managed accounts on that buzzword on scale. So we've got all the way from CFS, from Michelle Krig and Frances Taylor. Got a little fireside chat here on the stage. So ladies, welcome to the stage. You've got a set of stairs there. Please make them welcome, bang them together.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us today. For those that don't know me, my name is Michelle Krig. I'm the State Director in New South Wales and ACT at CFS, and I am joined by the wonderful Francie Taylor. So thank you so much. I know in the booklets it says Craig, but this is not Craig. Just to state the obvious, this is Francie. So yeah, we're going to have a fireside chat, and what we really want to do is make sure that there's enough audience participation. So please ask the questions. We've got a real life expert with us on stage.
Not tricky ones.
Yeah, only the easy ones, please, today. But please join us in really just talking through real life examples. So we'll make it an easy one to start, Francie, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your career and how you came to specialise in managed accounts.
Thank you, Michelle. Before I do that, I'm just going to read my fortune cookie from last night, and it says, "A thrilling time is in your immediate future." So I'm hoping that this next 30 minutes is thrilling for all of us. So how did I get into this industry? I was actually probably very young, very naive, and I actually didn't even know the company that actually selected me to actually join them. But I actually joined this industry in 1991. And when I say this industry, it actually amounted to 4 banks and 2 large insurance companies. That pretty much summed up the financial services industry. So a lot changed in the 90s. In fact, it pretty much was foundational that when you came in and you were a junior in that time, people said to you, "Oh man, you missed it. You weren't in the 80s. The 80s was great. Look at you now." And it was like, oh, okay. So literally those banks, whether it was a state-based bank or a national bank, went through an incredible period of loss. McKinsey was in on every door doing retrenchments by the country mile. And the money in Australia was managed in statutory funds by what probably was lovingly called a bunch of fund managers with a couple of actuaries. So, and those banks moved the market. So that's when scale actually works against you. There was so much money being pumped in at the same time that it moved the market against the people that were trading. So in other words, the banks had to work out how do we change that? And there was the, I suppose, emergence of the fund management industry. Banks went into funds management. We had our first diversified wealth management business in the 90s, and we actually had our first platform. Up to that point, it had always been master trusts. So I was a child of platforms. I came into that era. I grew up with platforms. ASIC didn't know how to regulate a platform. They knew how to regulate a master trust. They were saying, what is this odd thing? And so again, the regulator was catching up to the differences of different offerings and different product structures. Platforms at that stage, we talked about the front end. We always talked about the marketing. You know, you've got super, you've got accumulation, you can do this, you can do that. But all of a sudden, the conversation started changing in 2000 when it said, oh, my platform's powered by this technology. And we were like, that's a strange conversation. And the focus became then on the development of technology intertwined with delivering investments and in delivering investment research. Investment research was almost like pigeons. We did it and then we sent it by a pigeon. It was lucky that the advisor got it, let alone then actually implementing it in a portfolio. So we had to improve those pigeons. Just so you're aware, we didn't shoot any pigeon. We put them out to fly in greener pastures. But it really became apparent that need for excellent investment research combined in a portfolio delivered with technology was I suppose the foundations of therefore managed accounts. It was it was very much in its infancy then, and I kind of laugh because the first time I did one, I actually ran it on a Trustco system. The technology was atrocious. So clearly that arms race of building out technology that it is enabling has improved out of sight the outcomes for a member. Because now, obviously, within a very short period of time, no pigeons, we get top quality research packaged in that portfolio construction, best ideas, best breed, and then enabled by the technology and traded within 24 hours. So, yeah, I started at I suppose, a very young age. I grew with this industry and I've seen different structures evolve in that time. And some of them have been good, some have been bad. But that nexus between the technology and the investment has really come to the fore. And, that's where we see this in managed accounts.
Oh, well, that's good, and I'm glad to clarify that you didn't shoot the pigeons. That was something I was not feeling comfortable with. But my next question was, how do you think managed accounts have evolved over the last, maybe we'll make it 10 years, make it easier for you. What's your view on that?
Yeah, as I said, it was driven primarily by efficiency of delivering investment research and good portfolio construction ideas. It was in its infancy, as I said, efficiency. Now we've seen, advisory groups take that, develop potentially their own or select from a range of offers, and they have put what I'd call, and we've all put, packaging around that. In the 90s, I should say, that advice firms were struggling with the concept of actually charging a fee for advice. Sounds strange now, because when you talk to those people, they were incredible people, yet they were uncomfortable asking for more money for a piece of advice than a white good manufacturer coming out and charging to fix your fridge. Roll forward, very different proposition. But during that time, the advice firms have grown very mature in their business models, very mature in what they're offering their client, and very mature in the value proposition that they take out to market. And one of those items is their philosophy on investments and how they have then packaged that and delivered that in a managed account structure. So there's been an evolution of advice business models, an evolution of using that efficiency to deliver that. But we've developed things around it, and the maturity of the business now is, and there'll be a further evolution of, and you heard it clearly, the focus is on performance, and we haven't yet got to a stage as an industry where we rate these managed account structures and their performance evenly across the industry, and that makes it hard because we have that for funds and we can point to a fund and maybe we do over-rely on some of that research, but we haven't got yet to a point where we can point to a managed account offer and say, actually, hand on heart, that's perfect. It does what I'm expecting. And so I think we'll see another uplift in the managed account industry with the way it operates.
Thank you, and let's pivot more towards the conversations that we're having with advice groups today. We all talk about, managed accounts are going to improve something or they're going to fix some kind of pain point. What do you think managed accounts are really actually helping advisors with today?
Yes. I kind of see a mixture of businesses from where I've sat over the last 10 to 15 years in what their needs have been. I think all of us who've had the scary thing of running a business will know that they lie at night and think, oh my God, there is this part of the business, I'm extremely worried about it. Now, that might have been, I'm not sure if my portfolios that I've designed are going to deliver the result. And so then there has been the gravitation to outsource that component. There might have been, I haven't implemented those instructions and I'm worried about the risk or the inherent risk of continuing to do the trading on behalf of my clients. Or it could be simply, I actually need to generate and see more clients than I'm able to do now. So it's a mixture of reasons why people will gravitate towards a managed account structure. It's not the be-all and end-all. It has to be a very much a determined decision that this is the road that I'd like to go on. It's a road going from advice to a product. A product is going to be measured against a benchmark. If I'm going to be called against a benchmark, do I know the composition of that portfolio well enough to know which components will perform well in what markets and which won't? So the description of the portfolio is critical, and the role in describing what that portfolio is doing for that client is critical. And I think that level of communication will also uptick between the designers of the portfolios and the client. And I think we're still not mastering that brilliantly. Don't think we're probably mastering that brilliantly across the industry, no matter what structure. We've got to get better at communicating to the client what is happening with their investments.
And I think you're right. Like we're obviously having lots of conversations with advisors around managed accounts, and it's often very different reasons why advisors are wanting to build. It might be because they want to see more clients, or because they just can't sleep at night knowing that they're running their own portfolio. So I think that, there is no one answer. I might just stop there and see if there's any questions from the audience.
Toby?
I've got a question sort of following on from the ASIC session, Francie. As a platform that issues managed accounts and where the trustee has the oversight that Leah mentioned, how is that sort of colouring your thinking about the sort of menu of managed accounts that the platform should offer?
I said no difficult ones, Toby. Look, there is quite a strategy in designing out a managed account menu that is on a publicly available, a broad menu. I think it's important that you get exposure to all asset classes as well as diversified options. Within those, you're still looking at the quality of the manager within that asset class. You're looking at the different styles that can be offered within that asset class, and importantly, the different price points. So the RE and the trustee are expected to do a lot in that sense. And it is very critical to understand that ASIC comes in and says to, an RE or a trustee for that matter, more APRA in terms of a trustee, can you actually validate why that investment option is on your menu? What performance has it achieved? Both at a quantitative sense and a qualitative sense, have you assessed the business? And that we can't rely on, it's been rated externally. We have to apply another level. Also, each platform or each offer has different trustee and RE rules around it, and what assets they'll allow you to actually compose your portfolio of. But I also think one we miss a beat on is how well is that asset traded? We can often say, I really want to have this U-Butte LIC or something in it. But if that hasn't got the depth in terms of how it trades, it can make that whole portfolio quite illiquid. So we've got to look at liquidity at a portfolio level. We've got to look at it at a scheme level. So there's I think 180 different points, factual points that an RE or a trustee will look at in assessing even a fund, let alone a managed account, and how it behaves. So it's a pretty considered choice, I suppose, Toby.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we might move a little bit into the advisor world, and we obviously have a lot of different managed account structures on the platform, from the off-the-shelf to businesses building their own. But if you were to give advice to a practice or an advisor or principal who hasn't started on their managed accounts journey, what would that advice be?
I think the offers now cover what we call, one-to-many menu. That's you're open to the public. You can generally badge if you wanted to badge those offers, or you can go the full hog and build yourself in partnership with, generally an asset consultant or an investment manager that you are comfortable with. I tend to see that people who are not yet using managed accounts probably trial at the open menu first. They will look to select a diversified option there, or that, and ramp it up with a bit of alpha from an equity-only SMA. So they'll trial it first, and they'll trial it for a reasonable period of time, because the role has changed. Instead of being an asset selector to, I suppose, a stewardship role, where again you're talking about what that portfolio is doing. There is also a level of communication that goes out potentially from a manager that says, these are what's happening to my portfolio and why. Again, that's got to be of a standard that's good enough for an advisor to then relay to a client in an understandable fashion. I love our industry because we say it goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways, it does this, and you say that to your parents and they just look at you like gobbledygook. So I think we've got to get much better, as I said, as an industry, to actually explain what is happening in a portfolio that's easily digestible by a retail client. So I see it generally start at a public menu offer. Then as the confidence level grows, and it grows with the people that they've selected, as in off the menu, they then gravitate to sort of maybe the badge and develop out an APL of different managed account offerers. But they also might then go, we need to develop our own base set of portfolios, and we want that. But we also want to create our own APL of other offers that complement our diversified offer. So that's kind of seen the graduation of it. Well, I have anyway. That's what I've seen. So,
yeah, I think that's very fair. We often see advisors going and picking an off-the-shelf solution, or perhaps using a direct equity component in their model portfolio and then going up. So I think that's very fair. And technology's obviously changed a lot since managed accounts came into the picture. You've got platforms now offering technology like nesting and equity sleeves. Do you want to talk a little bit around what those are and what's the interest in all of that at the moment?
yes. So, as I said, the arms war in technology started a while ago, but often I'll say to someone, would you use your phone, your telephone or mobile phone at the time, of what you carried around in 2010? And the answer is pretty much no, because it was a BlackBerry and it's ugly. And now I've got this other thing and it's got a lot of choice, and I can download different apps and I can customise it to myself. And I don't, but my team does for me. But that essentially is, the progression that you can see quite obviously in a mobile phone. Under the hood in a platform, there's been a lot of technology change and development, and even in the last 6 years, I would say that, having something that's built from scratch again with new thinking again is very important. And the technology now that drives managed accounts will, I think, drive even further customisation further to the client's needs. And I think we'll see that in the sense that we also want to deliver different asset types to the retail client that haven't been actually accessible. So more technology will drive that kind of accessibility. So it's progressing fast. I think it'll push the boundaries of what the regulators again have seen. And we all just have to move with that. So.
And, looking forward, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but what do you think is the next thing coming for managed accounts?
Well, I think it'll be thrilling. That's important to see from the fortune cookie. Look, I think it sounds funny, but even international shares has fairly been inaccessible by the retail client. And in that sense, getting direct shares is, from an international sense, has been a pretty high balance that you've had to achieve to get set in that portfolio. So technology of fractionalisation will again bring assets more towards a retail client's accessibility. So we'll see that lowering of a barrier to get into that kind of, even just international shares. It sounds so basic, but that will be a plus. We will see, I think, more along the lines of direct indexing and customising that direct indexing. Also, I think the less illiquid assets that, how do we break them up and make them accessible? So I think there's a lot of work still to go between the nexus between investments and technology. Not forgetting property there, Marius.
Any questions from the audience?
Well, I do have one more.
Go on.
Again, we heard ASIC talk a little about benchmarks, and what they said was, look, we just measured each product against its own benchmark. But I'm reading dozens of IMAP award entries at the moment, and I can see almost a randomness in the way in which benchmarks or strategic objectives are set for portfolios which are ostensibly of the same type. Again, as a platform, how do you think about appropriate benchmarks for, say, the growth portfolios or the balanced portfolios or retirement income portfolios or green portfolios or so on and so forth, with alternatives, without? I mean, how do you set? What are your expectations in terms of what benchmark should be adopted for a managed account to be credible?
It goes all back to that research that's originally done on the portfolio manager, how they set or determine their SAA, how are they getting that? How are they determining it? Is it themselves and they're doing the forecasting of the 10-year returns and deriving it, or are they going to an external house to actually help them with that? Further to that, I often see that potentially the outfit that we're looking at is really good on that, and then quite poor on the selection or keeping up with the research on the underlying components. How can that be achieved with this team of very small people? So, again, where are they getting their research? How are they getting their ideas for the portfolios that are underneath it? Further to that, once you've got the design of the portfolio, as you said, you can't put an equity one against cash. You can't do certain things. So again, the trustee will look to the appropriateness of the actual benchmark set. I'd say it's very broad out there. And in some cases, some trustees have said, actually, we're not going to allow, a composite benchmark. We're going to push you into a known benchmark that we understand, and we can put everyone then on a relative basis if it's a diversified, option. So that's draconian in some ways, but it gives a way to sort of then league table how people are performing. It's hard.
Question. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a hard one.
Thank you.
I
Hi.
said no hard ones.
No. It's not going to be hard. I just want to bring us back to the practical implementation, Francie. And so you mentioned the journey from off the shelf to, fully customized, which makes sense. But I just do wonder if you see some instances that deviate from that norm. Perhaps someone starting their journey with a fully customized approach or some practices. And, what do those practices look like? And, what's driving that deviation from the norm?
In some sense, the groups that will go straight to building their own have got a very developed relationship with a research or a consulting house. They have always implemented potentially those portfolios in a manual sense with the pigeons. So they want to get uniformity and equality over their client base and the way that they implement the portfolios, so there's no implementation leakage for those clients. Client 1 is the same equivalent to client 500. It is uniformly across the board. It is actually traded at the same time, and as I said, there's equality in what's being offered across the client base. They also determinedly see the risk that they are facing into that, trying to do that themselves. And I think one thing I should say is not only is the technology and the way these design portfolios are doing, but the sophistication now sitting behind the platforms in how they trade these managed accounts has rapidly, improved. So if when I'm looking at a platform, if they don't tell me that they've got a specialised managed account implementation team that faces into a very good broker that will either do, at an algorithm or, direct market or pull out the ETF trade so that you're again not hitting the market at the same time, this is when scale works against you. So if you haven't got a very good team sitting there behind you doing these kinds of trades, and the expectation from the fund managers is high now. It's not just, here's a portfolio, good luck. It's, clearly their IP and their brand and their philosophy that they want to see implemented and traded well on behalf of the clients that are going to follow those portfolios. So it tends to be that they've been doing it anyway and they understand the inherent risks in their business of them doing it themselves. So they're passing their risk to me. That's a thrill.
Thank you so much. It was thrilling. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Toby, thank you for your 3. So thank you so much, everyone. And join me in thanking Francie.
No worries.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle and Francis. Well done.